Welcome to the trailer sway video, and this evening we're going to be talking about trailer sway, which is something which can definitely kill you, or at least cause a nasty accident when you are out towing. So with me tonight I've got John Eggenhuizen. He is one of Australia's foremost towing training instructors, and he owns the Tow-Ed training facility, and he has also done a fair bit of crash investigation with caravans and is an expert witness. So John, thank you very much. Just give you a minute or two to introduce your background and what you do.
Thanks very much, Robert, much appreciated. I started up Tow-Ed back in 2004, and basically as a request, we wanted to teach off-road towing, but most people were more interested in on-road. So that's where we put most of our efforts. And myself and one of my instructors at the time developed what we now know as our Tow-Ed course, and have refined that ever since. And we've been teaching it since 2005, so 16 years now, and that's done on a national scale. There's probably about 10 or 12 instructors around Australia. But as you said, I'm getting more and more involved in assisting the crash investigation units, certainly up here in New South Wales, with some of the accidents that have been happening. And I certainly know of 2 fatalities that I've worked on that have been a result of sway.
Okay, so let's try and avoid any more fatalities tonight. So you've got the expertise on the webinar. You're going to get a chance to ask questions on the Q&A feature. Now, before we do that, I'm just going to recap what sway is and the fundamentals of it, so we've got a basis for the ensuing discussion. So what you can see here is a Mitsubishi Pajero with a Caravan, and it is not a stunt driver. So that's a still from a webcam. Now you can see the entire clip if you go to my YouTube channel and look at my latest trailer sway video there. But basically what has happened there is the trailer has started to wobble left and right, and then that wobble, or sway as we call it, and snaking as it's known in the UK, just gets worse and worse and worse, to the point where it will actually throw the vehicle off the road and actually roll it over. And you can also see here, this is an example of what happens when it gets completely out of control. Now, I've just actually interviewed the couple who were involved in that crash, and they are lucky to be alive. So that interview will be up on my YouTube channel shortly. I'll be talking to them about exactly what happened in the minutes and even the seconds leading up to that crash, what they've learned from it, and what could have been done to avoid it. And that is what we are here tonight to do, to try and stop crashes happening in the future. Okay, so let's go over how sway works then. So on the left, we have got there a trailer and a tow car combination, and it is swaying. Now this is what sway looks like. It is basically a wobble, and what happens is, as time goes on, and when I say time, I mean 2 to 4 seconds, that swaying from left to right gets greater and greater, as you can see by that blue line there, which has increased in amplitude. Now that is the trailer. The tow car takes a similar path, but it doesn't actually sway quite as much. Now, the interesting thing about these 2 lines is that they are different lengths. You can see the blue line is a lot longer than the red line. So that means that the trailer is traveling faster than the tow car. I'll repeat that. The trailer is traveling faster than the tow car. This is a fundamental part of understanding what sway is. So the trailer is moving faster than the tow car. It is taking a longer distance from side to side to travel the same distance along the road. Okay, so how do we fix it? If sway happens and you have electric trailer brakes, this is what you have to do. Apply the brakes, the trailer brakes only. The reason why that works is because when you brake the trailer only, you are reducing the speed of the trailer to below that of the tow car. And if you recall from just what I said before, sway happens when the trailer starts to move faster than the tow car. So if you slow the trailer down to below the tow car speed, sway disappears, and that's what you do to get rid of it. If you've got an electric brake controller, you simply apply the brakes on the trailer only. Now, John, what would you do if you didn't have an electric brake controller apart from Prey?
Without an electric brake controller, you want the so that's any vehicle or any trailer that's under a GTM of 2,000 kilos. So they can have override brakes. You want to make sure that the trailer, the system, the override system, is working very well. It's quite well lubricated and works properly. So in that instance, what you're going to do is you're going to try and slow the car down, because you want the trailer to run onto the car, right? You've actually got to slow the car down for the trailer to be able to slow down.
Yeah.
There's no other way to do it. So you're applying the brakes gently, and I do mean gently, because you're trying to reduce the speed and therefore the amplitude of the sway of the trailer, and ultimately the speed of the trailer as well.
Yeah, now we've covered a lot of ground already, and if you're not sure what electric brakes are or overrun brakes or anything like that, we're not going to be explaining them tonight. I do have other videos where I go into this. We're just going to really focus on sway there. But in brief, an electric brake system allows you to brake the trailer only, whereas with an overrun brake system, the way that works is the tow car slows down and the trailer then sort of, not quite cannons, but sort of goes into the back of the tow car, and then that actually slows the trailer down. Now, overrun brakes can be effective. Personally, not a fan for anything other than sort of trailers maybe half the weight of the tow car, but they are legal up to 2,000 kilograms gross trailer mass. And if you're not sure what gross trailer mass is and all these terms, I do have videos explaining that. Okay, so we've got that. Now, to minimize your risk of sway, here's a bunch of things you can do. So this is not an exhaustive list, just a quick summary. One is tow the smallest possible trailer you can. The bigger the trailer, the greater the chance you have of sway. So imagine that you're at Bunnings and you've got this really heavy shopping cart full of all the toys that you don't really need, but you know, you went there on a Sunday morning and before you know it, you spent $700, right? Not that it's ever happened to me. And then a really heavy shopping cart, right? And then imagine you trying to push it around a corner, or a 4-year-old child trying to push it around a corner. I mean, the 4-year-old child is not going to be able to push that shopping trolley around a corner. And it's exactly the same way with a tow car and a heavy trailer. The heavier the tow car, relative to the trailer, the better. And in fact, in Europe, they say the trailer should be lighter than the tow car, which is good advice. Now in Australia, we throw that advice right out the window, but nevertheless, it is still a good rule. Now put your mass central and low. On my site, I've got a video, and I worked on this with John, showing that it's actually more to do with the weight distribution of a trailer that you get sway, as opposed to the weight of a trailer. So a heavier trailer can be more sway resistant than a lighter trailer if you have poor weight distribution with the mass front and rear. Now, particularly when you're towing a tandem, get the weight onto all 4 wheels. The reason for that, you've then got maximum tyre traction keeping the trailer straight, and you also have, you're more likely to have the correct tow ball mass, and the vehicle won't pivot round to the front or the rear tandem axle. Now you've got to get the right tow ball mass. Now this figure of 10% is floated around. It is just made up. There is no science behind it. It's just a goal. And it's not even necessarily the right tow ball mass. For example, my personal Caravan weighs 2,300 kilograms, and I tow that with 130 kilogram tow ball mass, and that's 5%. And that, I've tried everything and it will not sway. So I'm pretty happy with that. You don't necessarily need to go to 10%. On the other hand, you might need to go more than that. It's so dependent, but don't get fixated on 10% as the be all and end all of things. Now, minimize the overhang. I'll show you a couple more slides on that, but you really want to get your weight central as you can, and do not use extended hitches. They are evil. They should all be removed from vehicles, melted down, and the results used to make something more useful. Now, also slow down. The faster you go, the more likely you're going to get sway, and particularly slow down going downhill, because when you're going downhill, the trailer is automatically trying to overtake the tow car, and that is how sway starts. So you've got to button off the speed downhill. So one tip, select a gear manually in your automatics and then set your brake controller, assuming you've got an electric brake controller, such that a light application of the tow car brakes has a relatively heavy application of the trailer brakes, and then that will help you keep any potential sway under control. John, did you want to say anything?
No. Just I'm nodding in agreement. Everything that you're saying is ideal.
Okay, good. We'll get into the questions in a sec. Now here we have a electric brake controller. That's what it looks like there. You press that, you apply the trailer brakes. And this is actually from a Tow-Ed vehicle, supplied, photographs supplied by them. And that is on the, that's not where just the driver can use it, that's where the passenger can use it. And why is that, John?
Because quite frankly, as you've stated already, you've got about somewhere between 4 to 8 seconds to deal with this issue of sway. And in that time, the driver, just normally won't have enough time to take their hands or a hand off the wheel and then go searching for the brake controller that they know was fitted by the auto electrician. It was done a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not really sure where it is, and I'm not sure how it's adjusted. But here we see that it's in the center between the passenger and the driver. The driver can keep both hands on the wheel, can concentrate on trying to keep the vehicle as straight as possible. And the passenger can apply the brake controller and therefore slow the caravan down or slow the trailer down.
Yeah, that's right. And then the driver doesn't need to do anything apart from not hit the brakes. Now, the reason it's important for the driver not to hit the brakes is that, remember, you're trying to get the trailer to slow down relative to the tow car. Now, if you slow the tow car down, this means the trailer has to slow down even further. So if you get sway, do not accelerate, do not brake the tow car, just keep it as steady as you can and hit that brake controller. Now, another tip here, on some brake controllers, you might need to turn the dial to the right to increase the sensitivity, because it might be turned all the way to the left, which in some cases actually will give you very little braking effort. So you might need to turn it to the right and then apply the brakes. Now, if this sounds complicated, it might sound like the sort of thing you'd need to practice before you actually get sway on, and that's a really good idea. So what you do is, next time you're driving along about 100 k's an hour, just apply that brake controller at different sensitivity levels and see the result. You're not going to get sway and you're actually going to decrease it. Just play with that, get used to pressing that button whilst looking ahead, get that muscle memory going, and then get to know how much brake sensitivity you need to start slowing it down. That's probably one of the best things you can do to work out how to recover from sway in advance.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. It's something, I mean, most couples do everything as a team. So this is one of the things that you need to practice as a team. Even it can have significant benefits even when being overtaken by a truck. Or so I mean that's one of the times when the van can certainly be upset. So just a little bit of brake and apply the brake controller with the passenger whilst the truck is overtaking. Then once they're clear, release the brake and away you go.
Exactly. All right, now we don't have any questions, so feel free to ask us questions now about anything to do, and we're going to focus on trailer sway this evening. And whilst you guys are thinking of questions, I'm going to ask John about his crash investigation and expert witness experience, because I think that would be educational for us.
I've been involved in 4 so far in the last 2 years. Obviously, there's not that many that happen. One was a caravan, and it was coming down the Moonbee Hills out of Tamworth. It ended up that the combination was almost 800 kilos overweight.
Wow.
There were 4 adults in the vehicle. Once the vehicle lost control of the caravan, the whole lot rolled and unfortunately killed 2 of the occupants in the vehicle. But the problem was the fact that the van was horrendously overweight, and the car was poorly loaded as well. That is actually the only caravan accident that I've had to deal with. The rest have generally been with either trailers carrying large amounts of freight, i.e. hay bales or grapes in separate cases, and one that was carrying a car, but the car was very poorly loaded on a hire trailer. It was loaded backwards, and the weight distribution of the trailer was such that it was well and truly over the back of the trailer. In matter of fact, the vehicle was overhanging the rear of the trailer as well, which resulted in the trailer swaying and not being able to control it. It was around about 530 kilos overweight, because it was a hire trailer and no more than a GTM of 2,000 kilos. But the trailer weighed 800, and then quite a large car on top of that resulted in the vehicle rolling over and the passenger being deceased. And these, I can tell you now, these are not pleasant to deal with. They're not great. To see people in court who are families of the people who have died, it's absolutely gut-wrenching. It really is. And to know that everything that happened in any of those four instances, everything that happened was completely and utterly preventable.
Yeah.
Those people didn't need to die at all.
And that's why we're here tonight, to try and prevent exactly that sort of stuff. So still no questions at the moment, so we'll continue. So John, you've trained a lot of people to Tow-Ed. What would you say are the biggest misconceptions about trailer sway and keeping safe when you're towing?
I think probably the greatest misconception is that people have an inflated opinion of their own ability. They believe that because they've been driving for X number of years, they've managed to steer a vehicle without incident for all of those years, that they could then hook up a trailer and it should also be incident free. But the trouble is, you've got to be, you really have to step up. You've got to be a better driver when doing this sort of activity. You've got to be far more aware of your surroundings, alert to any movements or any noises that are happening in the vehicle and or the caravan. It's a totally different world, but people are prone to overinflating their opinion of their ability to drive.
Yeah. I'd agree with that from the training I've done. And I don't think it's helped by the two sets of salespeople. The salespeople that sell you a car, telling you it can tow a certain amount, and the salespeople that sell you a caravan, telling you it can weigh a certain amount and can be towed by a certain car. You put those two together, and very often people end up disappointed with the combination of tow car and caravan, which turns out not to be legal, or if it is legal, not safe. And that, to my mind, is a massive problem. And I think it's wise to aim at a caravan which is no heavier than about 2/3 of the maximum your vehicle can tow. Now that sounds incredible. So now hang on, I'm meant to be able to tow 3.5 tons. Now I'm not going to go tonight into the mathematics behind it and the calculations, because I have a whole video on this, and if I could compress that into 2 minutes I would, but it is not simple, so it's longer than 2 minutes. You can either watch that now, or you can watch it from your hospital bed. It's your choice, right? But the thing is, don't assume that you can tow realistically to the maximum tow rate that your vehicle is at, and don't assume that your caravan actually weighs what the manufacturer says it will weigh. The two are sad facts.
We did a series of videos as well, and the caravan that we were given, I was driving an Amarok at the time for the series. The caravan that we were given was a brand new van, straight off the showroom floor, had a plated tear weight on the compliance plate of 2,700 kilos. When we put it on the weighbridge, it was 2920. So 220 kilos above its plated tear, straight off the showroom floor. And we put nothing in the van. We towed it empty. We didn't need to have anything in it.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is the tear weight they put on there isn't a lie, but it's almost as if there's nothing in it. I mean, certainly the water tanks aren't filled. There's no gas bottle. There's no cutlery. There's no nothing. It's just the absolute barest bones of a van, not in any fit state to be lived in. And once you put some of the, and even then, I think it probably needs more. Sometimes I think they must even be weighed without 2 spare tyres.
And the problem is that the tear weight is generally stamped at the point of manufacture.
Yeah.
Right. It should be stamped at the point of registration.
Yeah.
So it should, the tear should be stamped on the van from the dealership at time of delivery, not from the manufacturer.
Now, one buying tip is, typically when you buy a van, and I've just bought one, you normally pay a deposit and 50% and then the rest when you pick it up. So make the rest of it contingent on it weighing what you think it's going to weigh. Now, if there aren't any scales there, there's a number of mobile weighing people, and I've had them on guests on this webinar series a few times. My good colleagues from Go Weigh and Talking Towing, they will turn up anywhere, well, pretty much anywhere in Australia, actually, and they will weigh your entire rig and your entire, every weight you can imagine, and they'll carefully explain to you what it all means. So do that and make that a condition of purchase. Can't stress that enough. You're handing over a lot of money here. The last thing you want to discover is that the thing is 200 kilograms more heavier than you thought, exactly as John found, and that was a demonstration van on a TV show.
Yeah, and it's not without reason, I think, to ask your retailer for a weighbridge certificate on the day of delivery.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's well within reasonable. It's a reasonable request.
Yeah. Now, here's a question from Stephen H. Are the aftermarket anti-sway hitch accessories effective? The simpler damper type system. So I'll answer that, and you answer that, John, and let's have a discussion about it. So my view is, if you need one of those things, you're badly set up, because you shouldn't need anything like an anti-sway hitch. But yes, they do have some effects there.
Yeah. Does he mean anti-sway, or because people quite commonly call their weight distribution hitches sway bars? And,
yeah, I don't know. But look, even
if it is the weight distribution hitch, then they certainly have great use, because what they will do is not only put weight back onto the front wheels of the vehicle, but they will reduce the amount of porpoising that may happen on a caravan on undulated roads. And physics will dictate that porpoising will eventually relate to a sideways motion.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. So one point I see quite often on forums is, if you've got trailer sway, increase your nose weight. Still got it, increase nose weight. Oh, still got it even more. Now, the problem with that is you're making the trailer very pitch sensitive, so it will start to do this. And exactly as John said, if it starts to do that, that's actually reducing traction on the back axle of the tow car, and in that can actually definitely induce sway. So you can have, here's the controversial statement, you can have too much tow ball mass, and we have a model with John and I have demonstrated this, and that will actually destabilize the vehicle if you have too much tow ball mass there. Now, one other point here, there is something called electronic trailer stability control, and there are 2 variants of that. And again, I've got another video explaining all of this. One of them is on the tow car, and pretty much, I think every tow car, probably about the last 5-6 years, has had it. So that will help mitigate sway. What happens is the computers detect that side-to-side motion of the car when it's swaying, and they apply the left or the right brakes individually very, very quickly, far quicker and more accurately than any human could, to combat that sway. That's one way of doing it. And the other system is to actually fit it on your trailer, and you can retrospectively fit these things. Again, gyroscopes on the trailer. When sway is detected, it automatically applies the trailer brakes for you and quells the sway. Now, what you can do is you can have both systems fitted at the same time, and they do work in concert with each other. But again, go watch my video on electronic sway control systems, and that will explain it all for you. Okay, John, any comment for you on?
Yeah, there are actual physical sway systems as well. Anybody buying a European-based van, they will have a clamping system on the tow ball itself, which is like an anti-sway device, a series of polyethylene blocks that actually sit around the tow ball and resist any movement. Also, as part of something like the Hayman-Reese waste distribution system, they have like a slide with friction pad surfaces on it that will reduce, or tries to reduce sway as well, and that's just purely on friction. How effective that is, I'm not really sure. I know the ones on the tow ball clamps are actually quite good, but just keep in mind with that, if you are using a European van, you need to have a square shouldered tow ball, so that the tow ball actually doesn't get undone by the force of the clamps going around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Sandy just put onto chat, I'd really like to take our van and vehicle to someone who can do an assessment of towing safety. Can you recommend anyone, John?
Oh, I'd say Tow-Ed.
there's a Dorothy Dixer for you.
So, yeah, look, whereabouts are you? What state are you in? It actually doesn't really matter. Just ring Tow-Ed head office, and we can generally hook you up with somebody who can make an assessment for you. If you live in Sydney, great, come to our office and we'll weigh the whole lot for you. Yeah. And it'll be dirt cheap.
Yeah, and look, Sandy's got the right idea there, because towing is complicated. There's even hooking up a trailer is not straightforward. There's a technique to knowing that. There's tips and tricks around that, let alone driving the thing and understanding all of the different weight regulations and everything else, and towing mirrors. It's actually quite a complicated subject here. And, you know, I'm going to put it out there. I think we should have a towing license, because I don't know about you, John, but I wasn't born knowing this stuff. I had to hit the books and study it, and, you know, hang out with people like you guys. And how I would have learnt that without studying, I don't know.
No, it's definitely a learned behaviour, and it's something where we together, I know Robert, have cognitively learnt. I mean, we've learnt from each other and we learn from other people, and it's just by talking and listening to webinars like this that you do start to learn. I certainly wasn't born with the ability to tow. I think one of my sons was, but he tows very well. But it's a skill that you have to develop. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, doing what I do, I would love to promote the idea of having a towing license. But I think that, matter of fact, I know that the whole caravan industry would fight it tooth and nail with a perception of loss of sales.
Yeah, which is a shame, because we're balancing sales against loss of life there and crashes, frankly.
I agree. I mean, they did the same for boat licenses and motorcycle licenses, and there's been no loss of sales for that. So I can't see the problem. And yeah. I really believe that anything above 750 kilos, you should have an endorsement on your license for, and it can have a grandfather clause.
Yeah,
there's no problem with that.
Yeah. Oh, look, I completely agree with that. Okay. So Sandy says she lives in Melbourne. That's good, where you guys have got a good operator down in Melbourne who can take care of that. So yes, if you're not sure about this stuff, and it is complicated, right? So let's be really clear here. One attitude I get impatient with on forums is people going, "Oh, you're stupid, you didn't know." No, you're not stupid. Not knowing something which is really complicated is not stupidity. It's just not knowing, right? And if you've grown up with cars and towing all your life, yes, it comes naturally to you, because, you know, you've been watching your dad hook up stuff ever since you were nappies. But a lot of people are coming into this late in life, and it is really complicated, really difficult, and it deals with things which are not intuitive. So you need learning and help people through it. Okay. Do we have any more questions? We don't at the moment. So what we'll do now is we'll talk a little bit about what we can do to avoid sway, or rather set your vehicle up and your tow up so it doesn't sway. Now, I put up here 3 phases. It's just a rough explanation. This is going to be part of a video, so you guys are getting a bit of a preview here. So John and I will talk through this. So first thing is the correct ball weight. Now, again, that's not necessarily 10%. It might be, I run 5%. I'm pretty happy with that. And everyone's going, oh my God, he runs 5%. Well, it does work for me because I've made sure that my weight's as central as it can be. It could be as high as 15%. So, John, do you want to comment on what the correct ball weight might be?
Yeah, I mean, it's most Australian manufacturers for caravans will look at a figure of somewhere between 7 to 15%. If it's as low as 5 and it all works, that's great. It's no problem at all. If it's what we are seeing is that there are some exceptionally heavy ball weights out there. Look, 10% is the figure that's bandied around by most people. It's not a bad-ish to start off from, right? But it's always going to be 10%-ish. It's not a hard and fast rule by any means.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the correct ball weight is the first thing there. Then the tyre pressures. Now, here's the thing. When you hook a trailer up to a tow car, you are putting quite a bit of pressure on the rear axle. Now, here's something which is counterintuitive. Let's say that your tow ball mass is let's say it's 100 kilograms. You are putting more than 100 kilograms of downforce on the rear axle. And in fact, for the average four-wheel drive, it's about 50% more. So if you've got 100 kilograms of tow ball mass, you're looking at adding 150 kilograms to that rear axle. Now, one of the things about tyres is the more weight a tyre carries, the greater the tyre pressure you must put in that tyre. So because we're adding significant extra weight to that rear tyre, you need to increase the rear tyre pressures. Now, for a large caravan, you may well be running 200, 250 kilograms worth of ball weight, and you start to multiply that out, and that's 300-400 kilograms extra load on the rear tyres. So you must add extra tyre pressure for that. If you don't, what happens is the tyre will flex too much left and right. It won't be stiff enough. And that means that the vehicle won't be able to effectively control sway. You'll also be running too low a tyre pressure in effect, and that will be detrimental to handling generally, but particularly in wet weather. So make sure you increase your rear tyre pressures on the tow car, and also ensure that they are adequate for the trailer as well, and go after manufacturer recommendations for that. And if you're not sure, add an extra 3 or 4 psi, because it's better to be a bit overinflated than to be underinflated. Underinflated, the tyre will overheat and flex too much. But don't go the other way. Don't go running 80 psi everywhere, because then you're going to go a very bouncy ride or damage the carcass of the tyre. I could probably do a whole seminar on tyre theory here, probably enough. John, what have you got to say about it before I get carried away on my favourites? One of my favourite subjects.
It's one of mine as well. It's one of mine as well. Yeah, tyre pressures, absolutely. We do see a bit of premature failure due to tyre pressures being too low. Therefore, the tyre heats up a lot quicker than it should. But yeah, get the tyre pressures right. They are placarded on the either in the door or in the glove box of the car. So yeah, I think running at that heavy load, recommended pressure, certainly a good spot to start.
Okay, good. All right. So next thing, remove the extended hitches. Now, these are, in my view, pretty much pure evil. I've got a photograph of them in a moment, so we'll get to that. But you keep the tow hitch as short as you can, and tow level. So what do you mean by that, John? Towing level.
Try to keep the van as level as possible with the vehicle, so that you're not putting extra weight on the front axle. Even if it's a single axle caravan, try and get it as level as possible. If it's a dual axle van, you're not then putting more weight on the front or the rear axle, and putting premature wear on A, those tyres, and B, you're destabilising the trailer just by the way it's riding. So try to keep the trailer as level as possible, and that may mean using an adjustable hitch, as long as it's not too long.
That's right. And yeah, so you can go to any decent caravan shop and say, look, this is the hitch I need, and then you can get one to adjust up and down. So really there's no excuse. Really important with tandems, because you want pretty much equal weight on all four wheels of your tandem trailer, and that means that it's got maximum resistance to sway and maximum braking capability, and that means maximum safety, and you're less likely to end up on the side of a road upside down waiting for the SES to cut you out. Okay, on that cheery note, this is a very cheery seminar tonight, but we are doing good. Now, shift non-central trailer weight to the car. Now, here's the thing. If you've got a heavy item, it is much better off in the car than the trailer. And again, just go to my latest video on this, which I did with John and the models, and you will see the result. If you have a heavy car, that is much better than having a light car. So shift weight to the car rather than the trailer. Now the caveat for that is do not exceed any of the limits such as GCM, GVM, ATM, front and rear axle loads. And again, if you don't know what they are, I've got a video on it, go watch that. Any comment on shifting weight, John?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say add to that was just make sure that you're not then overloading the gross vehicle mass, as you stated. In a series last week, I was working with Transport for New South Wales and the New South Wales Police, doing a series of free weight checks for people to come along and get their whole rigs weighed. And this is a ludicrous figure. The heaviest vehicle we saw, whilst the van was attached, obviously, was 474 kilos overweight.
Wow, that was the vehicle, not the entire lot.
That was just the vehicle.
Wow.
Right. So I mean, obviously it had the trailer attached, so you've got to account for the tow ball weight as well. But in that instance, obviously there's nothing you can take out of the van to put into the car that's going to make it any better.
Yeah.
So, but there are a lot of cars. There are a lot of instances where you can move some of that weight out of the van or out of the trailer into the car, and it will make it a lot better.
Yeah. Okay, and the next one is tanks. Now, caravans typically have 2 water tanks and a grey water tank. So if you've got centrally located tanks, then travel with them full. But if they're towards the extremities, try and travel with them empty. And again, I go back to the trailer weights video I've just posted here. So weight in the center of your trailer will help stop sway. Weight towards either end will exaggerate and promote sway. Right, really important. It's not just getting the trailer as light as possible. You can have a heavier trailer, which is less likely to sway than a lighter one. Now, we know it's not always easy to shuffle waters around, but you know, I'm telling you what could be done. Whether you can do it or not is up to you. Now, phase 2, wheel alignment. So wheel alignment is basically where your wheel is pointing, with it slightly towing in, pointing out, whatever else there. Make sure that's right. If that's out, you can almost not tow a caravan straight. So get regular wheel alignments on your tow car and on your caravan as well. Centralize the weight, we've talked about that already, but you can maybe take another go at that and say, okay, well, I've done the easy bits. So one tip for me is my fridge, it goes in the car. I don't actually put it in the trailer because where the fridge is on the trailer is typically a pretty bad location for a heavy weight. It's a long way forward of the axle. Don't really want it there. In the tow car, I can actually put it right over the rear axle of my ute, and that's a much better place to put the fridge. So yeah, try and shift the weight around. And then for phase 3, we're looking at component relocations here. This might be where you're going, you know what, I'm just going to relocate the spare wheel, I'm going to relocate a tank, relocate batteries, that sort of thing there. And then you might also consider suspension upgrades, particularly if your vehicle is a bit old, and perhaps lowering it. Some of the off-road vans, John, you've seen have got very, very tall suspension.
Yeah, we were at the Melbourne Caravan show only a couple of weeks ago, and the excessive height that we're seeing on a lot of these so-called off-road vans nowadays is just it beggars belief. It really does. I mean, you call a caravan off-road, and you're allowed to jack it up 750 mil off the ground. It just I can't understand how that in itself becomes stable. The center of gravity is just so high.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The taller a caravan is, the more likely it is to sway. And also an off-road caravan is way more likely to sway than an on-road caravan for the following reasons. One, it's taller, it's got a higher center of gravity. And then that massive slab side is high off the ground. That means when a wind gust or something gets, it's going to go from side to side. Two, it's heavier because it's got generally a thicker chassis and it's got taller tyres, etc. And the heavier it is, all else being equal, the more sway you'll get. Three, there's this insistence, ridiculous insistence on fitting mud tyres. Mud tyres do not grip the road as well as road tyres, and then therefore to prevent sway, you actually want your trailer to grip the road. It's kind of a fundamental there. Then you got generally two really heavy tyres right at the back, quite tall up, which is the worst place dynamically to put weight. And on my own caravan, I've got that, but I've actually removed one of the spare tyres because, you know, I can repair tyres in the field. So for me to be immobilised to have two unrepairable tyres is going to be quite unlikely, I'd suggest. And I've just saved myself 33 kilograms of weight at the back, which is definitely a good thing. I'd actually like my spare to be underslung, but it's not designed that way.
Yeah, there's, and I mean, an off-road van, certainly my interpretation of off-road is obviously very different to a lot of other people's. I can't imagine towing any of these caravans in a dedicated off-road arena. At best, I believe that they are gravel road vans.
Yeah, I agreed. And you don't need, the thing is, you go, oh no, I'll have mud tyres for gravel roads. Well, okay, when you're on a gravel road, you're generally going a bit slow, but imagine this, you're at speed on a freeway, it's at night and it's raining and it's cold. Do you really want mud tyres on your vehicle then? I don't. I want, you know, at best all-terrain tyres, and the all-terrain tyre is really not that much different to a mud tyre on dirt roads. So I think this passion for fitting mud tyres onto alleged off-road caravans is insane.
All it does is it makes them look tough, and it makes them look off-road, and it makes them look, you know, this thing that just can't be beaten or broken or worse. But it does nothing for the dynamics of the van at all. As you say, a good high-quality highway terrain tyre would be far better.
Yeah, and that can be light truck construction, by the way. So it's because, you know, you can have a very tough tyre with a road pattern. Doesn't need to be a mud terrain pattern. Okay.
You know, this is where we start to affect change, Robert.
Yeah, exactly. So I put the place tyres there as well. Now, this photograph here, this is an extended hitch. So you can see there that hitch is abnormally long, and what you have here, ladies and gentlemen, is a chassis waiting to be cracked, because the longer this line here, the distance from there to there, okay, the greater the leverage. And you can see that they just added this amount of extra length there because this canopy is at the back. So they've no doubt got a lot of stuff in the back here, which is dynamically a really bad place for it because it's behind the rear axle. Then we're extending the tow hitch. Then we put, now this caravan here is probably, how much do you reckon it would weigh, John?
Probably about, my guess about probably 1,500 kilos.
Yeah, I reckon you're probably right. I didn't actually sneak a look at the compliance plate. So it's probably 150 kilograms worth of tow ball mass there. Multiply that, and you know, that's a lot of weight down there, and that's a big moment from there to there to start waving things around. I made a complete mess of this now. Let's get rid of it. Yeah, this is evil. This is evil. So here's a closer look at it. Okay, take those things out, melt them down so there's one less of them in the world, because all you're going to do is crack your chassis if you don't have a crash first.
Yeah, so if that's 150 on the ball, that's probably about 225 to 250 kilos on the axle.
At least there as well. Yeah. Any final words from you, John? Give us some wisdom. You've been doing this a long time.
Oh God, words of wisdom.
You love it when I ask that.
I think the biggest take-home thing out of all of this, Robert, is to do what we asked the couple who were exceptionally overweight. Sorry, the vehicle and van were overweight, not they. What we asked them to do was to either upgrade the tow vehicle to something much bigger and much more capable, or more importantly, downsize the van.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of, we do see a lot of people who are towing enormous rigs, and for a variety of reasons. They may have sold their home and are now on the road full time, or they just want to bring all the comforts of home away with them whenever they travel. And for my liking, I see that they do it. Do I understand? Not completely. I mean, coming from a tent background myself, I've got 4 caravans, and I tow a boat as well, and not all at the same time, luckily. But I question the need for the size of the vans that we're seeing out there.
Yeah.
For typically 2 people. Sure, if you've got a family and you need bunks and that sort of stuff, yeah, the caravan's going to grow. But yeah, downsize. Try and keep that weight of the trailer, the caravan, equal to or less than the weight of the car.
Yeah.
And things will be considerably safer. The other thing that I would like to add as well is that we touched on the fact that speed exacerbates sway. It makes it considerably worse. Towing it at 90k seems to be a really good speed. We found that when I was leading all the caravan safaris a few years ago, 90k's was a very economical speed. It also doesn't impact on other road users that much. Towing at 80, your gearbox isn't locking up, and you're actually going to use more fuel at 80k's now than what you do at 90. But towing at 100 is 15% worse for fuel economy. But the thing that is worse is the fact that every trailer that we've ever come across has its own harmonic at which it will start to play up for no apparent reason. You could tow quite happily at 95. It may tow happily at 100, but at 105 it'll start to sway, and that I find inexplicable. But just keep your speed down and reduce the size of the van. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, the reason that sway builds up so quickly is something called the speed squared law. And without going into an aerodynamic lecture, basically, if you double the speed, you get 4 times the drag. If you triple the speed, you get 9 times the drag. And if you quadruple the speed, you get 16 times the drag. And that's also to do with forces. So when you go from 90 to 100, that's about 10% more speed, but it's actually way more than that in terms of extra forces. And that's why your fuel consumption builds up so rapidly when you increase speed. There's a big difference in fuel consumption between 100 and 110, for example, and stopping distances. So your stopping distance from 50 k's an hour is actually, your stopping distance from 100 k's an hour is actually way more than twice as long as from 50 k's an hour. So keeping even 5 to 10 k's. Yeah. Okay, so thanks, Bradford. Appreciate that. that's the end of the webinar. This will be up on my YouTube channel as a recording in the next few days. Thank you all for attending. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments on YouTube or on my Facebook page. You know how to contact John of Tow-Ed. We wish you all very safe towing. Thank you for attending, and thank you, John.
Thanks very much, Robert. Much appreciated. Hopefully the information that we've been able to give out tonight will keep people safe on the road.
Thanks all. See you again. Bye.